In the dim flicker of candlelight that danced like restless spirits across the walls of the old manor, Elijah moved silently through the shadowed corridors. The air hung heavy with the scent of decay, moldering wood and the faint, metallic tang of impending death. Outside, the Louisiana bayou whispered secrets through the twisted cypress trees, their branches clawing at the moonless sky as if to pull it down into the murky depths below. Elijah, bound by chains unseen but unbreakable, had served the Hawthorne family for as long as memory served, his hands calloused from toil, his spirit worn thin by years of whispered commands and unyielding obedience. In the stifling heat of the Hawthorne plantation, where the air clung like damp cotton to the skin, Elijah had long learned to move through the days with his eyes lowered and his thoughts buried deep. The manor loomed over fields of swaying cane, its white columns stained with age and something darker that no amount of scrubbing could erase. For weeks now, Master Hawthorne had been wasting away, his skin turning the color of old parchment, veins mapping his arms like twisted roots. The white doctors came and went, muttering about fevers and imbalances of humors, prescribing laudanum and leeches that did nothing but hasten the inevitable. But Elijah knew better. It began with a dream. No, not a dream, but a memory that had been locked away since childhood, forced to the surface by the master's weakening breath rattling through the house like dry leaves. In the slave quarters, under the cover of night, when the overseer's lantern had finally swung away, his grandmother had whispered the stories of the old ones who came before, of blood spilled into Louisiana soil that cried out long after the bodies were gone. She spoke of the Hawthorne who built this house, the first one who made bargains in the moonlight with things that wore familiar faces but carried hunger in their eyes. The curse wasn't poison in the conventional sense. It was older, deeper. It fed on the land itself, on the generations of suffering soaked into every plank and beam. Elijah had seen the signs growing stronger as the master declined, the way mirrors clouded when no one breathed near them, how the hounds refused to cross certain thresholds after dark, the faint handprints that appeared on windows facing the family cemetery. Prints too small to belong to any living child. When he ventured into the overgrown plot behind the manor, pushing through Spanish moss that hung like funeral veils, he found the stone his grandmother had described. Half buried beneath kudzu, its carvings worn but unmistakable, symbols that matched the faint scars on his own back, marks from a whipping he'd received as a boy for looking too long at the master's books. The realization struck him like cold water. The illness wasn't random. It was the house collecting its due, the land remembering every lash, every separated family, every unmarked grave in the quarters. Standing there among the tilting headstones of Hawthorne's long dead, Elijah understood that the master's dying wasn't misfortune. It was justice, slow and patient, wearing the face of disease. And in knowing this, in carrying the forbidden knowledge of what truly ailed the man who owned his body, Elijah felt the buried memories rise like floodwaters. His mother's cries echoing across the fields, his sister's sale papers signed with the same hand that now clutched feverishly at bed sheets. The curse wasn't just killing the master. It was forcing Elijah to remember why it had every right to. As the master's condition worsened, Elijah slipped away under the cover of a storm-lashed night, the rain drumming on the tin roof of the quarters like impatient fingers. He carried a small burlap sack and a lantern turned low, its flame trembling as he followed paths only the enslaved knew, narrow trails through the cane that parted like secrets before closing behind him. Deep in the bayou, where the ground turned soft and treacherous, he sought the roots his grandmother had named in hushed tones, black snakeroot twisted like veins, devil's shoestring coiled tight as nooses, and the pale, fleshy petals of moonflower that opened only when no honest light touched them. He gathered them with hands that did not shake, though his heart thundered louder than the storm. Each plant carried its own warning in the old stories. Some healed, others bound, and a few demanded payment in measures no man could weigh lightly. Back in the dim corner of the root cellar beneath the manor, where the air tasted of earth and forgotten things, Elijah laid out his harvest on a scarred wooden table. He pounded the roots with a stone worn smooth by generations, the rhythm steady as a dirge, releasing scents sharp and sweet that curled like smoke through the darkness. It was then, as he measured drops of his own blood into the mortar, 3 for the past, 3 for the present, 3 for what might come, that the full weight of the ritual revealed itself. The cure was not merely a potion. It required a tether, a willing anchor to draw the curse from the master's body and fix it elsewhere. The words etched in his memory, spoken in a tongue older than the plantation itself, demanded a sacrifice, not death, but surrender. To complete the rite, Elijah would have to offer the one thing the chains had never fully taken: his name, his unseen future, the fragile dream of walking north under his own will. The mixture thickened, turning the color of old bruises, and the air grew colder despite the summer heat pressing against the cellar walls. He understood now why his grandmother had never used this knowledge, why she had let fevers claim the young and the old alike rather than speak the binding words. Healing the master would root Elijah deeper into this soil, trading one form of bondage for another subtler and eternal. The curse would leave Hawthorne's veins only to settle in his own spirit, ensuring that even if freedom came one day, he would carry the plantation with him always. Its whispers in his ear, its weight on his tongue, its shadows stitched to his footsteps. Yet the alternative gnawed just as fiercely. To withhold the cure was to watch a man die slowly, to risk the overseer's rage and the auction block for those left behind. The potion cooled in its clay cup, waiting, while Elijah stood in the flickering light, caught between the mercy he had been taught to give and the justice his blood remembered. The fever had stripped Master Hawthorne of his defenses, leaving him frail and unguarded beneath the heavy canopy of his bed. Elijah entered the chamber at dusk, carrying a basin of cool water and a cloth, the routine of care now second nature, even as resentment coiled in his chest. The old man's eyes, once sharp as a hawk's, were clouded and restless, darting toward corners where shadows pooled deeper than they should. When Elijah leaned close to wipe the sweat from his brow, Hawthorne's hand shot out with surprising strength, bony fingers clamping around the slave's wrist like iron manacles. "Boy," he rasped, voice thin as parchment tearing, "you listen now. Ain't got much time." Elijah froze, the cloth dripping onto the sheets. In all his years of service, he had never heard the master speak without command or contempt threading every word. Hawthorne's gaze fixed on him, fever, bright yet strangely lucid, as if the illness had burned away pretense. He pulled Elijah closer until their faces were inches apart, the sour breath of sickness washing over him. "You think I don't see it in you?" Hawthorne whispered. "That look. Same as your mama had, same eyes." The name of his mother, unspoken in this house for decades, struck Elijah like a lash across raw skin. He tried to pull away, but the grip held. "She weren't just any field hand," the master continued, words tumbling faster now, as though racing death itself. "She come to me one night after the old master, my father, passed. Crying, carrying a babe already showing. Said it was his. Said he'd promised her freedom for the child." Hawthorne's lips twisted, something between bitterness and confession. "I paid her to keep quiet. gave her the indoor work, let her keep you close. But the blood, it don't lie. The room seemed to tilt. Elijah felt the floorboards shift beneath his feet, the walls leaning inward, as if the house itself strained to hear. Images, long buried, surged forward. His mother's gentle hands braiding his hair, her murmured songs in a language the overseers forbade, the way she sometimes stared at the master's profile with a sorrow too complex for mere hatred. "You're Hawthorne too," the dying man said, voice cracking. "My half-brothers get. My blood same as mine. That's why the fever clings so hard. It knows its own." He released the wrist at last, fingers falling limp against the counterpane. Tears, real and unfeigned, cut tracks through the grime on his cheeks. For the first time, Elijah saw not the tyrant who ordered floggings and sales, but a man terrified of the dark closing in, desperate to unburden a secret that had festered longer than the curse itself. The confession hung heavy in the stifling air, binding them in a way no chain ever had. Elijah stood motionless, the basin trembling in his hands, water spilling over the edge like blood from an old wound reopened. The lineage revealed twisted every certainty he had clung to. Vengeance now edged with fratricide, mercy tangled with self-preservation. The dying man's eyes searched his face, pleading for absolution or understanding, while the house creaked around them, listening. The potion was ready, its surface still and dark as the bayou at midnight, resting in a cracked porcelain cup. On the tray, Elijah carried up the servant's stairs. Each step creaked louder than the last, as though the house itself protested what was about to happen. He had spoken the binding words in the cellar, felt the air answer with a pressure that pressed against his ears like deep water. And now the mixture carried a faint luminescence, a sickly green glow that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. He crossed the threshold into the master's chamber, and the candles guttered all at once, flames bending away from him as if recoiling. Hawthorne lay propped against pillows, eyes half-lidded, chest rising in shallow, uneven pulls. The confession still lingered between them like smoke, thickening the already stifling air. Elijah set the tray on the bedside table and lifted the cup. For a moment he hesitated, watching the glow ripple across the old man's features, casting shadows that moved when nothing else did. Then the room changed. It began with a chill that seeped through the floorboards, cold enough to frost the breath in Elijah's lungs. The heavy drapes billowed inward, though no windows stood open. From the corners where lamplight never quite reached, shapes gathered, tall and thin at first, like silhouettes cut from midnight cloth. They solidified slowly, taking on substance. A woman in a tattered headscarf, her mouth open in a silent scream. A child no older than 10, wrists raw and circled with old iron burns. An elderly man whose back bore ridges that caught the candlelight like pale scars on ebony. Faces Elijah knew from fragments of stories, from names whispered in the quarters after dark, from the unmarked mounds beyond the cane fields. They did not speak, yet their presence filled the chamber with a weight that pressed down on Elijah's shoulders. The woman drifted closer, her bare feet leaving damp prints on the polished wood, prints that smelled of river mud and something coppery. The child reached out, small fingers brushing the edge of the bed, and where they touched, the sheets darkened as though soaked through with old blood. Hawthorne stirred, moaning low in his throat, eyes widening as he too saw what the fever had previously veiled. More came, dozens, scores. A silent procession emerging from walls that seemed to breathe, from the warped glass of the mirror above the mantel, from the very grain of the oak panels. They encircled the bed, faces turned not toward the dying master, but toward Elijah, eyes hollow yet burning with an accusation older than any living memory. The temperature plummeted further. Frost feathered across the window panes in patterns that resembled chains. The cup trembled in Elijah's hand. The glowing liquid sloshed, casting writhing shadows across the gathered dead. He understood then that the ritual had not gone unnoticed. The curse, roused by the promise of release, had called its witnesses, those who had paid its price long ago, to watch whether the debt would finally be settled or merely passed along. Their cold gaze weighed his soul, waiting to see which way the balance would tip 3 nines as fast the cup hovered at the edge of Hawthorne's cracked lips, the glowing liquid casting an unearthly light across his gaunt face. The encircled spirits pressed closer, their chill breath stirring the bed curtains like a wind from forgotten graves. Elijah's hand steadied, though every instinct screamed to pull away. He tilted the porcelain slowly, watching the thick brew slide into the master's mouth. Hawthorne swallowed once, twice, then a third time, his throat working with desperate greed. A shudder ran through his withered frame, and the room held its breath. Color returned almost instantly. First a flush beneath the pallid skin, then a surge that deepened to something healthier than the man had worn in years. His chest rose in a deep, unlabored pull of air. The veins that had stood out like black cords receded, leaving only the faint blue tracery of age. Hawthorne's eyes snapped open, clear and sharp, fixing on Elijah with a mixture of wonder and triumph. A low, ragged laugh escaped him, building until it filled the chamber with the old commanding timbre that had once sent field hands running. The spirits wavered. The woman in the tattered headscarf reached toward the bed, her mouth stretching wider in that silent scream. The child's blood, darkened fingers curled into fists. One by one they began to dissolve, edges fraying like smoke in a sudden gust, retreating into the walls with a sound like distant weeping. The frost on the window panes melted in rivulets that traced crooked paths down the glass. The oppressive cold lifted, replaced by the heavy warmth of a Louisiana night pressing through the cracks. Hawthorne pushed himself upright, strength flooding back into limbs that moments ago had been too weak to lift a hand. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, bare feet touching the floor with the confidence of a man reborn. His gaze swept the room, lingering on the empty corners where shadows now lay quiet and ordinary. "You did it, boy," he said, voice steady, almost gentle. "Knew you would. Blood looks after blood." Elijah stepped back, the empty cup still warm in his grip. Something shifted inside him, a hollowing, as though the ritual had drawn more than he realized. The master rose fully, tall again, shoulders straightening beneath the nightshirt. He crossed to the window and threw it open, letting in the thick scent of night, blooming jasmine and wet earth. Moonlight spilled across his restored features, revealing a vitality that bordered on unnatural. But in the reflection of the glass, Elijah caught a glimpse of himself. Eyes too bright, skin taking on the same faint luminescence that had pulsed in the potion. The binding had taken hold. The curse had not vanished, it had merely changed vessels. Hawthorne turned, smiling with teeth too white, and placed a hand on Elijah's shoulder. Proprietary, fraternal, unbreakable. The house settled around them with a sigh of satisfaction, floorboards no longer creaking in protest, but humming softly, contentedly, as though the balance had been restored in a way no one had foreseen. Outside, the bayou croaked and murmured, and somewhere deep in the walls, the spirits waited, patient as ever.